In this video, we're going to walk you through each step in the process for setting up your capacity plan. But it is going to be a minute before we get to the capacity planning page. And that's because there are a number of things that you really should do before you start building out your plan. First up, we're going to go to the portfolio items page. And we're planning for the Digital Bank Core Train that's made up of 4 teams. We're going to create our plan at the feature level and for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 24. I have my portfolio items filtered to only show the features that have already been assigned to this release. If you haven't assigned your portfolio items to a release and you're looking at a larger unfiltered list, you can use the bulk edit feature to change the release field for all the items you want to include at one time. Now, technically, this step isn't required at this point, but setting this field helps to keep your data clean, and it helps you find unplanned work that's happening despite not being planned. Now you can query on plans, you can query on releases, and find where things don't match up. So this is the list of features that we want to get done in this release. But before we start the planning process, it's important to prioritize the list of features so we know what's most important. And to do that, you can just drag and drop them into the appropriate order. And the last thing we'll look at on this page is the preliminary estimate. Ideally, before you start the planning process, the teams that are going to do the work will have looked at each feature and provided a preliminary estimate. This can also be filled in later, and you can see that we have a couple here that don't have estimates, and we're not going to let that slow us down. By the way, if this estimate field or the release field don't display on your page, like most pages in Rally, you can select Show Fields to add them. Now we have our prioritized list of portfolio items that have been assigned to our release. We have estimates for most of them, so we're ready to move into the capacity planning page and we can create our plan. To do that, we're going to make sure that we're in the project where we want this plan to live. You should create your plan at the same level that contains the portfolio items that are related to your program or release train. Then select Add New, and you can see our selected project at the top. We'll enter a name for the plan, and we are planning for a single release, so that's our selection here. A multi-release lets you create a plan that spans multiple releases, and a plan of plans is exactly what it sounds like. It lets you connect multiple single release plans together to create one longer-term plan that spans multiple releases and teams. And that option does get a little more complicated, so we have separate videos that describe how to create that type of plan. But we're creating a single release plan, so we need to select the release that we want to plan. Then we need to specify the portfolio item type, and you can create a plan at any level, but a single release plan is typically created at the feature level, or whatever you call your lowest level in your portfolio item hierarchy, because that's where your work items live. And our last decision point is whether we want our plan to be based on user story points or user story count. That is, the number of user stories. And Rally used to lean heavily toward points, but in your capacity plan, points and counts are true equals. Both are supported from preliminary estimate all the way up through all the analytics and rollups. So choose whichever method you prefer. With all our selections made, we're ready to select Create. And now we have a brand new capacity plan for Q4. Super easy. Of course, our plan is pretty empty. So we'll start by adding the projects or the teams that will be working on the release. And we do that from the Project by Total tab. And we're going to start by adding 3 teams that will all be working on this release. Now, one of the primary points of a capacity plan is to determine how much work we think each team will be able to complete during the release that we're planning. So it's time to take our first stab at determining the capacity for each team. If you've been using capacity plans for a while now, you can go back into the previous plans to see how much work the team was able to complete in past releases. You could also go to the Reports menu and look at release burnup or velocity. But a really handy way to get to the same data is to go to this little icon in the capacity column. Selecting this icon passes a bunch of basic information from your plan directly to the capacity forecast tool. And you don't even have to parse the details of that tool unless you want to. The capacity planning page is just going to tell you, this is the recommended capacity for the team based on their historical velocity and throughput data. If you don't trust us, or would just like a little more information, you can click this link to open the Capacity Forecast tool and review the data yourself. I'm not going to go into the details of this tool in this video, but if you click the Help icon on the Capacity Forecast page, you'll find detailed information about how to use it and a video to walk you through. In addition to our historical data, also remember to account for anything that's unique about this release compared to previous releases. Maybe the makeup of your team has changed, or maybe there are more holidays or vacations than usual. All of that should be baked into your final number for the team's capacity. For this video, I'm just going to use the suggested capacity. And you can see that the capacity for the team is updated. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and update the other teams as well. And you can update this field at any time during the planning process as new data comes to light. Now we have our teams added, and we've defined their capacity. It's time to add our features. To do that, we'll go to the Features tab. And a quick note here, the name of this tab and the related buttons is determined by the portfolio item type that you selected when you created your plan. And these names are customizable in Rally, so you might see different labels than I do. We'll filter our list to the features that we assign to this release and add all of those to our plan. This is our initial ask for this release, what we would like to get done. And here are all our features. Now you might be asking yourself, why are all these features unassigned? I can clearly see that they are in fact assigned to a project. And that's an excellent question. This can be a little confusing at first. A capacity plan is intended to be a working document that's focused on the conversations that help everyone feel comfortable with the plan and let them commit to moving forward. So even though these features have teams that quote-unquote own them, we don't want to automatically assign them to our projects in a plan where they count against a team's capacity until we have those conversations. As the teams agree to add features to their plan, you can assign the features to the appropriate team. Selecting the teams from this field indicates that the feature is fully assigned to the team, and that's an important distinction to make. Selecting a team from here means that the team is fully responsible for all of the work in this feature. But what if you have a situation where multiple teams might be contributing to a feature? This could be a feature that's too large for one team to finish by themselves, or it could be that a portion of the feature requires specific expertise from another team. Maybe you have a separate database team or a security team that has some task to perform in the feature. It could also be that you want to capture the work of the documentation or the education team. That type of feature splitting is accomplished through what we call allocations. And we're going to cover that in another video. It's not super difficult, but it does take a little explanation. For now, we're just going to assume that each team will be fully assigned for each feature in our plan. And with those assignments in place, let's go back to the Projects by Total tab and see how our plan is looking. The first thing I'll say is don't panic. We're starting to see a few warnings. And that really is just part of the process. If we hover over these warnings, we can see exactly what's going on. Okay, we have a feature that's missing an estimate. We knew that was going to happen because we didn't define it in the portfolio items page, and that's easily fixed. This is all part of the planning process. As we have ongoing discussions and continue to refine our estimates, we move into a better and better understanding of exactly what needs to be done. And then we can compare those better, more refined estimates to the team's capacity to finalize our plan. At this point, we have a plan in place that includes all of our teams, defined capacities, and all of our features. It seems like we have warnings that are pretty easy to fix, but the interesting thing is that as we fix these, we're probably going to introduce more as our plan gets more refined. But let's focus on the fact that we've created a plan, it's a great starting point, and it was pretty easy. And we'll show you how to deal with these warnings and refine your plan in the next video in the series, Resolving Errors in Your Capacity Plan. To learn more about Rally and Agile practices, check out our blog and community. Like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you'll never miss new content as it's added.